الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book بلوغ المرام من أدلة الأحكام by Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, and we're discussing Kitab al-Tahara, and of those masail that he discusses, of those matters that he discusses is matter regarding, as he title in this chapter, Bab Nawaqil al-Wudu. So matters that invalid the person's wudu, those are the things that are being discussed. So we'll be discussing today the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib and what is mentioned regarding, or what it states regarding, of those acts that nullifies one wudu. So as the normal format of this lesson, that we'll have the hadith read, then also the hadith will be discussed by way of takhrij, and also explanation, and then taking the fawa and taking the masail that relates to this particular hadith and how it relates to the chapter we are discussing. So the hadith will be read and then it will be discussed. Tafaddal.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Hadith 64, narrated Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu an. I was one whose madhi urethral discharge flowed readily. Hence I asked Miqdad to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about it. He, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said one should perform wudu in this case. Agreed upon. The wording is Al-Bukhari's.
So this is the hadith that is mentioned by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah that relates to of those things that nullifies one wudu. So he mentioned and state the hadith of that is here. The hadith he mentioned, and Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu قال كنت رجلا مذا فأمرت مقداد أن يسأل النبي عليه السلام فسأله فقال فيه وضوء متفق عليه واللفظ للبخاري. So this is the hadith that I mentioned here regarding this discussion, which has read the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, where he states regarding that he used to experience having this discharge. So he placed and asked Miqdad ibn Aswad to discuss this matter with the Prophet ﷺ, to ask the Prophet ﷺ regarding this matter. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he told him regarding fihi wudu, that if the person experiences this or have this discharge, then fihi yani wudu. Some mention in some, and this narration, the hadith in the Bukhari and Muslim, and laf lil Bukhari, and this narration is the narration of Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah. The narration of Imam Muslim mentioned, rather than fihi mentioned minhu wudu. So of some narration of the narration of Imam Muslim, minhu wudu, that from it is wudu. So as for the first regarding step regarding discussing this hadith, that will have a takhrij. So the first is takhrij of the hadith. So as for this particular hadith, as stated by those who have checked this book or did some editing of this book, of those Sheikh Dr. Samir Zuhairi rahimahullah, in his checking that he stated regarding when he mentioned this hadith, that he stated that hadith number 3 he mentioned Sahih, this hadith is Sahih, Rawahu Bukhari wa Muslim, and he stated the number where this hadith can be found in both these books, and then he stated Wallaf Muslim minhu badal fihi, and that the wording in Sahih Muslim is the word minhu, from it, other than not fihi, of it. So what he mentioned, so he mentioned regarding takhrij, somewhat he just stuck to what was mentioned by the author Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that he only cited the hadith, referenced the hadith back to those two sources, and just mentioned a slight difference that is mentioned by Imam Muslim compared to what is stated by Al-Bukhari. Then as for the next of those who have done some work, and you have many who have done work around this book, so of those we have Sheikh Mahir Al-Fahl in his checking of the book of Bulugh al-Maram, when he mentioned this hadith, that is hadith, it reads, and Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu قال كنت رجلا مذا, the Prophet ﷺ, the person experienced this discharge, فأمرت مقداد ibn Aswad. So in this narration of this other checking, compared to the one before of Sheikh Samir, that the checking of Sheikh Yasin Fahl, that it mentioned the name of Miqdad, he mentioned Miqdad Amartu, I commanded, instructed Al-Miqdad ibn Aswad. that I asked Miqdad ibn Aswad. So in the other, checking the other book, it mentioned Miqdad only. It only mentioned the word, his first name Miqdad, without Ibn Aswad. But in this one, it mentioned this additional, which is Miqdad ibn al-Aswad. Then, and the hadith as follows. Then as for his checking of the hadith, that he mentioned the hadith is number 4 in the checkings. Then he mentioned Sahih, meaning the hadith is authentic. Then he stated Akhrajahu, the hadith had been collected by Ahmed in his book Al-Musnad. And he mentioned the volume and the page. Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, wa Ibn Khuzaymah, Bitahqiqi wal Bayhaqi. So as for this hadith, that of the source that he mentioned regarding hadith 1, Ahmed ibn Hanbal in his Musnad, Bukhari and Muslim, as stated above as muttafaqun alayh. Then also in addition, he add also Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i. So based upon this, the hadith in Kutubu Sitta. The hadith is of those hadith, that is of Kutub as-Sitta. Then I mentioned wa Ibn Khuzaymah and also Al-Bayhaqi. So these are those sources that have collected this hadith, that the author Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that he referenced the hadith to Bukhari and Muslim, but the hadith is found in other sources, and amongst them, based upon what has been mentioned here, found in Kutub as-Sunan Arba. The hadith also is found in as-Sunan al-Arba, which is Abu Dawood, with Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, wa Ibn Majah. And so that's concerning this hadith by way of takhrij, and mention the hadith in the Bukhari and Muslim with a slight difference in the wording, a slight difference in the wording, and he chose the wording of Al-Bukhari. So as for the hadith that is mentioned here, that now discussing the hadith, that as for Shaykh Abdullah Fawzan, Hafidullah Ta'ala, in his explanation of Bulugh Maram, then first he went to takhrij of hadith, that he went to citing, referencing the sources where this hadith can be found in Sahih Bukhari. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah mentioned this hadith in several places. So he mentioned the bab, this hadith, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, based upon what he mentioned here, fi kitab al-ilm. So in the bab of knowledge, it is mentioned, where he discussed concerning the bab of knowledge. This hadith is cited in the, or mentioned in the kitab al-ilm, in the bab of, the book of knowledge. He mentioned bab, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, bab, man istahya بأمر غير بسوال, that the person who have haya, the person who somewhat having shyness, and also instructed others to ask a question. So regarding of, he mentions, so this of that of ilm, where a person may have a certain level of haya, shyness, where they are unable to ask that question directly to someone, so they will instruct or request someone to ask on their behalf. And it's something which is from this hadith, the permissibility of this. So for the person may have a question that needs to be clarified, that for a person, because of haya, that they do not totally not seek clarity, but rather of the means that they can use is asking someone else to ask on their behalf. So using a person, a third person to ask on their behalf, if because of shyness and the situation, they may feel somewhat uncomfortable in asking a question. So in that case, they ask someone else to place the question on their for them. Then also, and that's the hadith of Ali, the hadith of Ali. Then also the hadith is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, fi kitab al-wudu. So also he mentioned in kitab al-wudu regarding this. Also this hadith is also mentioned in kitab al-wudu by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, where he placed it on the chapter of man lam yara al-wudu illa min al-makhrajaini. So he mentioned that of the ulama, this hadith is mentioned or cited, man lam yara al-wudu, those who do not see wudu to be performed except for that which exists, that pass through both the through front and the back. So this is the evidence that so that's concerning this particular hadith, showing regarding anything that exists that comes from the front or the back, then those things nullify one wudu. Then they mention, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah also mentioned hadith in third kitab al-ghusl. So also he mentioned this hadith in bab of ghusl, mentioned ghusl al-madhi wal wudu min, that washing of madhi wal wudu from it. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah have cited his hadith in several places in his Sahih, as sometimes is a practice that is done by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. Then also Imam Muslim rahimahullah, that and they mentioned that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, the word that he mentioned is the word that is mentioned in Kitab al-Ilm. So the wording that is placed there or mentioned here in Bulugh al-Maram, it is the similar wording that is found under the chapter of Imam Bukhari in the chapter of Al-Ilm, Kitab Al-Ilm. As for Imam Muslim rahimahullah, that he mentioned this hadith, I will mention that the slight difference. Imam Muslim rahimahullah mentioned minhu al-wudu, minhu al-wudu. So Imam Bukhari, fihi, in it is wudu. Imam Muslim, he mentioned minhu, from it is wudu. Ibn Abdul Bar rahimahullah, he mentioned regarding this hadith, قال Ibn Abdul Bar rahimahullah, والحديث ثابت عند أهل العلم. That this hadith is authentic with the ulama of ilm, with the people of knowledge. Sahihun, authentic. له طرق شتى. And Ali, and it also have many narrations coming from Ali. So you have different wordings of this hadith from Ali ibn Abi Talib ta'ala anhu. Wa an Miqdad, also the hadith is narrated by Miqdad ibn Aswad, wal Ammar. So also the after narrator is Ammar, also narrated this hadith mentioned, kulluha siha hisan. All of these hadith are authentic, and when I mention that he said wa ahsanuha, yani concerning the narration of the hadith, ma dhakarahu Abdul Razak. And the most, he mentioned the best of the wordings of this hadith is the narration, the wording mentioned by Abdul Razak. So Abdul Razak, and as mentioned this, he mentioned as the best wording of this hadith. So that's concerning this particular hadith that has been mentioned here. And the next thing that is discussed regarding this hadith, as stated by Ibn Abdul Bar rahimahullah in his book Al-Istizkar, a very important book regarding concerning the explanations of the book Istizkar by Ibn Abdul Bar rahimahullah, is an explanation, one of another of his explanation of the book of Muwatta. So Ibn Abdul Bar rahimahullah, that he have several works on the book of Muwatta of Imam Malik rahimahullah, of them Tamheed, and second also Istizkar and others. Other thing that the ulama have mentioned regarding concerning that this particular mention, as Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, he mentioned that regarding this particular hadith, that of those who ask the Prophet ﷺ regarding this matter, regarding madhi. So of those who question or ask for clarity on this matter, they mention some narration mention Ali ibn Abi Talib, as in of those mentioned who ask about this matter, Sal ibn Hanif, and also Abdullah ibn Sa'd al-Ansari. So these are three of the companions who somewhat ask regarding the matter regarding al-madhi, and will explain what this is. So of those who ask this question, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Sal ibn Hanif, and also Abdullah ibn Sa'd al-Ansari, Rata'ala anhum ejma'in. Then he mentioned the second of the matter regarding this particular hadith, where he mentioned, the hadith states, Kuntu rajulan madha'an. So I was a person, Ali ibn Abi Talib Rata'ala anhu, speaking about his situation regarding that, of those men that experience, I mentioned, madha. So he had this. So he had a case, a situation regarding madhi. So madha, as they are mentioned regarding concerning that, what is meant, kathir al-madhi. So the one who kathir al-madhi, where a person that you have lots of or frequent discharge of madhi. So what is madhi? So the next question is, what is al-madhi? So madha is a person of this constant or lots or frequent discharge of madhi. So what is al-madhi? What is al-madhi? So they mention madhi. So madhi, then this is it, is a discharge that a person experience that comes with a person that now is sexually aroused. So when a person is sexually aroused, then one will have this discharge that a person one will may have. So a person will have this discharge when they are sexually aroused. Then this liquid will come from there, from the man, his private parts. So that's concerning what it is. So in a person that in a time the person is aware of it, when it is being when a person having this discharge, so when it is flowing from his body, then the person might be aware of it, and at times the person may not. So it's something that you may be aware of, and sometimes you're not aware. So that's concerning al-madhi. So madhi is this sexual discharge that a person has when they're sexually aroused, that the person may be aware of it and the person may not be aware of it. So they mentioned that he said in the hadith, Amartu Miqdad ibn Aswad and Yas'al. So we mentioned that in some of the prints of Bulugh al-Maram, some of the printing, they have the name Al-Miqdad ibn Aswad, and some only mention Al-Miqdad. That he mentioned, وَيَسْأَلْ Rasul alayhi salam, so he asked Miqdad to pose the question to the Prophet alayhi salam, to quote the President, to the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding this matter that he felt shy about asking. So it mentioned that regarding concerning that he asked Miqdad, and some narration clarify, so Ali ibn Abi Talib, that at that time he was married to the Prophet alayhi salam's daughter. He was married to the Prophet alayhi salam's daughter. So based upon this, he felt shy to pose this question directly. So different narration it mentioned regarding that, he asked Miqdad ibn Aswad to pose a question on his behalf. Then it is stated regarding concerning the reason, and some of the hadith can somewhat explain the reason why he asked Miqdad to put this to pose this question. Where they mention استحييت أن أسأل رسول الله عليه السلام وفي لف لمكانة ابنته من, because he said I felt shy to pose this question to the Prophet ﷺ directly because of the position of his daughter, as his daughter was then his wife. So he felt a bit shy to ask the Prophet ﷺ this matter because of the Prophet ﷺ's daughter was married to him. So also mentioned min ajli Fatima. So some narration mentioned that of Sahih Muslim mentioned min ajli Fatima, that he didn't want to ask the question because of Fatima, who was then the wife of Ali ibn Abi Talib and being the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ. So that mentioned that, so that's concerning the reason why he didn't pose the question directly, and went through others as mentioned this narration. As for Miqdad ibn Aswad, so as for the one who the questioner was Miqdad ibn Aswad, so al-Miqdad ibn Aswad, so Miqdad, his name is Miqdad ibn Amr ibn Tha'laba al-Kindi. So Miqdad ibn Aswad, his name is Miqdad al-Miqdad ibn Amr ibn Tha'laba al-Kindi, and his nasab, he goes back to Aswad. And Islam, they mentioned that al-Miqdad, of those who accepted Islam in the early days. So Miqdad, of those who accepted Islam in the early days. Al-Dhahbi rahimahullah, that in his book Al-Kashif, he mentioned Kana Miqdad Sadis fi Islam. He mentioned Al-Dhahbi rahimahullah, Hafid Al-Dhahbi rahimahullah mentioned Kana Miqdad Sadis fi Islam. He was the sixth person to accept Islam. So he was of the sixth person to accept Islam, as mentioned by Al-Dhahabi. So overall, he said to be of the early ones, and the few accepted Islam in the early days. Then I mentioned Hajar Ijrataini, also he made a migration twice. So also he made a migration. So also that Shahida Ghazatul Badr, he participated in the Battle of Badr, and also the battle that came after. And also then he mentioned that Miqdad ibn Aswad, that he died here Sana 33 al-Hijri. So he died the 33rd year of the Hijrah. So the 33rd year of the Hijrah, Miqdad ibn Aswad rahimahullah ta'ala anhu, that he died wadufina bil-Baqiyah fil Medina, and that he was buried in Medina. So Miqdad ibn Aswad rahimahullah ta'ala anhu, that of the Sahabi, and something in brief regarding who that companion is, and of the thing of the highlighting matters regarding Miqdad of the early ones who accepted Islam. So they mentioned that as for the backdrop regarding this qissa or this hadith or what occurred, that I mentioned that Ali ibn Abi Talib anhum, that he was in a majlis of mudhakira, a majlis of them discussing matters between himself and others regarding madhi. So himself and others were in a majlis discussing concerning this matter, as mentioned in the narration of Abdul Razak in the hadith of Aish ibn Anas. So in the narration of the hadith of Aish ibn Anas, where I mentioned there was a discussion between Ali and others. So who was present? Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ammar ibn Yasir, and Al-Miqdad ibn Aswad. So these companions were having a discussion regarding al-madhi. So in this discussion, then Ali radiallahu anhu, he mentioned, Inni rajul madha, that I'm a person who see this a lot. Then he asked concerning Fas'alu Rasul al-Islam, and that is actually, can you ask the Prophet al-Islam on this matter? Inni astahi and as'alahu. I feel shy in asking him about this matter. And ذلك لمكانة ابنته مني, because of the position of his daughter to me, or because of the relationship that his daughter has with me. ولو كان مكان ابنته مني لسأله. If his daughter was not, meaning that under me, meaning his wife, I would have asked him myself. فقال عائش فسأله أحد رجلين. Then he mentioned that one of those persons, one of the other two, that they pose the question, Ammar or Miqdad. So in this narration that is in Abdul Razak, that it is there's some doubt as to which of the two asked the question, Ammar ibn Yasir or Al-Miqdad ibn Aswad, but one of the two asked the question. So this narration somewhat, it's it was somewhat doubtful as to which of the two asked the question, Ammar or Al-Miqdad. And that narration in the Abdul Razak in his book Al-Musannif. So in some narration of the hadith, I mentioned, in some narration of this hadith, that it indicates that Ammar ibn Yasir is the one who asked the question, contrary to the narration that we mentioned in Bulugh al-Maram, the hadith of Bukhari and Muslim, that the one who asked the question was Al-Miqdad ibn Aswad. But in some narration it mentioned that the one who asked the question, that it is Ammar ibn Yasir, and that narration regarding Ammar being the one who asked the question, that narration can be found in Sunan and Nasa'i. So Sunan and Nasa'i, in his narration, the one who asked the question is Ammar ibn Yasir. In another narration, as we mentioned before, of the one who asked the other narration, is that Miqdad ibn Aswad who asked the question, as in the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. So Miqdad ibn Aswad is the one who asked the question, as in the narration of Bukhari and Muslim and others. And in the third narration, that it mentioned that the one who asked the question is Ali ibn Abi Talib. He himself asked the question. So some narration indicates that Ali asked one of those two to ask the question, Ammar or Al-Miqdad. But in some narration, it is stated that Ali ibn Abi Talib was the one who posed the question himself. He mentioned that سألت النبي عليه السلام and Madhi. That he mentioned in some narration that he asked the Prophet ﷺ about Madhi. Then the Prophet called min Madhi al-Wudu. Then the Prophet ﷺ responded to him by saying, min al-Madhi Wudu. From Madhi, Wudu is to be performed. Wa min mani ghusl. And from mani, semen discharge is ghusl. And that narration, it is in the At-Tirmidhi, that Ali is the one who posed the question. Also Nasa'i Ahmed, wa qala Tirmidhi rahimahullah, al-hadith hasan al-sahih. Even though there is some discussion regarding that hadith. So you have the hadith regarding that Ali ibn Abi Talib posed a question, that is in At-Tirmidhi and others. There's some discussion regarding that particular hadith, but some of the ulama, that they hold the hadith to be authentic, as At-Tirmidhi rahimahullah himself graded the hadith. So they said how to combine between those three narration as to who asked the question. That I mentioned that the Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, he mentioned that al-jam bin hadi riwayat anna Ali amara al-Miqdad an yas'al fasala. That he mentioned that a way to combine these narration and together these narration in one one clear way. That he mentioned that one, that Ali asked Miqdad, and he asked. So Miqdad was asking on behalf of Ali. Then also they mentioned that وأما النسبة السؤال إلى الأمار فهي محمول على مجاز, and that the question being some who mentioned that it goes, the question was asked by Ammar, that ala majaz, that's not indirectly. So that was not indirectly, figuratively saying لكونه علي قصد بغير. They mentioned that Ali may have intended him, so he intended him also to ask the question, one, and the one who actually went through on it was Miqdad. So they try to combine, as mentioned, so they try to combine in that way regarding which of the order and the sequence regarding those who the question being posed. So Ali was the one who had the idea, and he asks others, one of those, he put it to one, both, some narration mentioned this one and other mention that one. So those indirectly, them directly, Ali was the one who initiate, and them, Miqdad, and the others indirectly as or directly in them posing a question, or one of them posing a question. So Miqdad posing a question, but also Ammar, that also he was of those ones who were asked to pose a question. But I mentioned the narration regarding that Ali is the one who initiated the question and didn't ask because of his shyness. Then most narration is in line with that narration. The next after point I mentioned, fihi wudu, when the Prophet mentioned fihi wudu, yani then Muslim rahimah mentioned minhu al wudu. So you have that discussion, fihi wudu and minhu al wudu. Also they mentioned that with this narration, there's not need to have many different wordings. Ibn Hajar rahimahullah chose us a portion of the wording as it suited this particular chapter. And they mentioned regarding that, also that he left off bits of the hadith and different wording of hadith. And I mentioned that, the reason for this, that he tries to just restrict the narration or mention a portion of the hadith that it proved the point that he wanted to raise. So the point that he wanted to raise, which is to state that al-madhi requires wudu, he only kind of somewhat mentioned that portion of the hadith. So he didn't mention the full length of the hadith, but only mentioned the portion that he wanted as to prove his point. And that, which is the point of madhi requires wudu. Some of the narrations they mentioned that it mentioned dhakara, ghusl, al-dhakar, that also portion of the hadith mentions that washing of the private parts, the private area. Then he missed out that part. So he mentioned that he did not mention those bit. As you see, that bit concerned is regarding that it proved regarding concerning that as that didn't prove the point regarding that it nullify one wudu, but requires to be washed. So Allahu Alam didn't mention of this bit. So that regarding concerning proving that madhi is najas, but here is to prove that it is also requires wudu. If it was to occur, it requires the person to renew his wudu. Then the next point that is mentioned here regarding this hadith, al-hadithu dalilun ala jawaz tawkil fi suwal wa istibana fi istiftah, or istiftah, that lil-udhr kal-haya wa nahu. That he mentioned also the author, the sharih, hafidallah, that he mentioned also from this hadith, it proves that from this hadith that the permissibility, it is allowed for a person to ask someone to pose a question on their behalf. So finding someone to pose a question on your behalf, where the person is not the one who may want to ask the question, rather than do so directly, he's getting someone to do so on his behalf. So this hadith shows the permissibility of this. It shows the permissibility of this, where also the person may not want to pose that question directly, as he may have a other, he may have a valid reason, and in this case concerning that, because of the situation regarding that Fatima was the wife of Ali, and Fatima was the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, so that he felt a bit shy in speaking to her father about matters relating private matters regarding himself and his wife, who was the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ. So that's concerned at the fact of haya that a person should have regarding certain things, that is not best to be direct, better to be indirect or ask others to act on your behalf. So that question could be posed whether the original questioner, they are present or absent. So the question, the person acting on the behalf of the questioner, they can pose that question whether the person who asked the question initially, they are present or they're absent. So they mentioned that if the person who's acting on behalf of that other person to ask the question, of those things to take into account regarding a person asking question, and they want to relate to others. Then of those things, one, that person acting as like an agent, or acting on those people's behalf, then one tawthiqu, that the person is also is a trustworthy person. So the person is trustworthy. The person want to ask the question on behalf of others. So one, the person is trustworthy regarding he has good understanding of what to ask and what he's going to understand from the answer given. So understanding the question to be asked and the answer that is given. Also the person also is a hifz, that is able to memorize as to what was asked and also the answer that was given. Also a diyana, and also the person upon deen, where the person that is a Muslim, that is outside upon his deen, where the person fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding the matter. So the person that he fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he will act with credibility, that he will act with genuineness and truthfulness. And also the person that is precise regarding his knuckle. So regarding the person that who know the information that he relates, for him try to be as precise as possible. So in relating back that information, then also the person must be precise. The person must be precise that the question that he asks, it is known, and the answer that he receives also is able to relate back precisely. The next of the things that are discussed regarding this hadith, that they mentioned that hadithun dalil ala annahu yuqbil al-khabar al-wahid. That also this hadith proof regarding that accepting the narration of a few narrators. So accepting the narration of a few narrators, then also this is acceptable, as in this case. So one person went and asked the question and got the answer and then relayed back. So it shows regarding accepting the information that have been related by a single person or a few individual that hasn't reached a level of tawatur, or many people are narrating that narration. So it shows that a few narrators, one or a few, narrating something back to others, then this is something which is acceptable regarding matters, even matters regarding a deen, even matters regarding the deen. What are matters of the deen? Matters regarding ahkam al-fiqhiyya, that matter relates to the practical acts of Islam regarding al-wudu, salat, siyam, and the likes. Or matters regarding in relation to matters regarding Aqidah. So even matters of Aqidah, then also this is allowed. So the person regarding accepting Khabar Ahad, a few people narration, is acceptable in areas of Aqidah and also in areas of fiqh. Next of those things, the author, the Shara, he explained, أَنَّ مِنَ الْأَدَبِ وَحُسْنُ مَعَاشِرَةِ. Also of those things that can be taken from the hadith, that is hadith also, it shows regarding that a person try to have good conduct and behavior towards those who are family members, or so extended family members and in-laws, for a person also to exhibit proper conduct and behavior. So a person displaying good conduct and behavior towards those who are extended family members by way of in-laws, then for one to be mindful of this. So Ali in this case was mindful regarding that situation, regarding his wife, father, being the Prophet ﷺ, that not discussing things that are private matters to her family. So that's concern of the adab that can be taken regarding a person not discussing private matters, intimate matters of the relative of his wife or his husband. So not for the wife to discuss intimate matter with her husband, family members, nor for the husband to discuss intimate matters to her family. So that's of the benefit regarding the person, regarding al-adab wal-khuluq, that is expected from the Muslim, and in particular people that are in-laws and related. Of the thing that they discuss regarding concerning that this hadith, al-madhi, they discuss concerning al-madhi, naqid min nawaqil al-wudu. That also from the hadith, what can be taken, that madhi, that it is of those acts that nullify, invalidate the person's wudu. So of those things that invalidate the person's wudu is madhi, the discharge of madhi. So they mention that this hadith is approved regarding this, where it is mentioned by the ulama, they are mentioned regarding that it's considered to be of those that nullify one wudu, and that's a position taken by many of the ulama. So they mention Omar ibn Khattab, Abdullah ibn Abbas, wa Abdullah ibn Umar, wa Jama'a min al-tabi'in, أنهم أوجبوا الوضوء من المذي, that of those who they see it as is compulsory for one to renew one's wudu if they have any discharge of madhi. So any discharge, sexual discharge of madhi, then a person has to renew his wudu. And also that's the view that is taken by Imam Malik, Ibn Anas, wa Ali Medina, Awza'i, Ali Sham, Sufyan al-Thawri, Ali al-Iraq, وكذلك قال الشافعي وأصحابه. So that's concerning that they mention Ibn Mundir rahimahullah in his book Al-Awsat, وَلَسْتُ عَالَمْ, that he mentioned وَلَسْتُ عَالَمْ, I do not know في وجوب الوضوء منه اختلاف بين أهل العلم, that I do not know of a difference between the people of knowledge on this matter. So regarding that madhi nullifies one wudu, it's somewhat a matter which is somewhat shib, somewhat there's no khilaf that is known between the ulama. So there's no khilaf that is known between the ulama regarding this matter. Also Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he said kulluhum yujib al-wudu min, that all of them that they see it as it is compulsory for one to perform wudu from al-madhi. وهي sunnah mujma alayha, and it's like a sunnah that is agreed upon. لا خلاف, and there's no khilaf. Walhamdulillah fiha, and that there's, praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this. Praise be to Allah on this. So that's concerning of the hukum regarding al-madhi being of those acts that nullify one wudu. So I mentioned, there's no khilaf that is known between the ulama on this matter. So a way of indirectly saying there's ijma. So indirectly saying that there's ijma on this matter. Of the matters that are discussed, that as mentioned, that is also discussed, the Shaykh discussed al-hadith dalilun ala najasat al-madhi. So the next matter that is covered from this hadith can be taken from this hadith or discussed between the ulama, that madhi, is it najasa? Is it considered to be najas or not? That I mentioned that the Prophet of Islam, by him ordering and instructing that the private area, the dhakar, the private area of the man is to be washed, and also other narration mention also that is other areas to be washed, then indicating that this act, it nullifies that it is something which is najas. So the hadith, at some narration mention washing of his private area, and then some narration mention washing his private area, and also it includes also his testicles. So the hadith mention is zakar, is private part, and also including his testicles, as in some narrations. So based upon this, that some of the ulama have come to the conclusion that it is something which is najas. So it is considered to be najas. Madhi is classed as najas, and regarding its ruling, then after discussion between the ulama, that if it is in a small amount of madhi, is it still what's regarding this matter? They mention if it's a small amount, they mention that even though it is najas, if there's only a small amount, they mention أنه يعفو أن يسير المذي, that a person somewhat is pardoned if it is not washed away, if it's just a small quantity of madhi. So they mentioned, he's excused if he was to not wash this. وهو رواية عن Ahmed, and Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, that Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, that is a narration that he give a person excuse if it is a small amount of madhi that is there, the person is somewhat excused without if it was not washed, or if it is there. And I mentioned that Ibn Taymiyyah Ahmed rahimahullah قال كنسنا ثم قال قلت هو صواب خصوصا في حق الشباب, that Abd al mentioned regarding that sahib كما ذكر صاحب الإنصاف ثم قال, that he owed this to be something which is correct, that a person is excused if only a small amount is discharged, that as this sometimes occur between the shabab, concerning the youths, that it may occur more frequent, so they are excused for a small quantity or a small amount. لأن هذه نجاسة, because the reason they mention this, لأن هذه نجاسة, because this najasa of madhi, يشق احتراز منها, that it has become difficult for the person to not fall into it. لكثرة ما يصيب الثياب الشباب الأزاب, especially concerning those who are said to be young men who not yet married. So they can somewhat give them an excuse on this matter. They give they give them an excuse on this matter. So that's concerning that matter. So overall, madhi is najas, but one is excuse of a small amount. One is excuse for a small amount, as sometimes occur with the shabab and others. The next of those masail that are discussed, as we mentioned, that al-madhi naqil al-wudu. So we mentioned that in ijma, or there is no khilaf between the ulama on this matter, indicating then I discussed concern that in this case regarding this matter, the person, what is to be, so mentioned that is najas. If it's so, what area to be washed on the body? So what regarding concerning around a private area, what are the areas to be washed? So they mention a dhakar, which is the male penis, that so the private parts of the male, that they discuss regarding what is to be washed. So they mentioned that if it occurs, then a person will perform al-wudu. So if it was to occur, the person is to, meaning madhi was to occur, or that discharge was to occur, then the person performs wudu. So it is nawakil min nawakil al-wudu, it nullifies al-wudu. And so if it was to occur, then a person required to perform al-wudu. Then I mentioned that as for what to be done, as the Prophet mentioned, waqsil dhakarak wa tawadda, that if it was to occur in some narration, that you should wash off your private area and perform al-wudu. So from this the ulama mentioned that it's an ijma, la yughsil, la yujib al-ghusl, that an ijma that it doesn't require ghusl. So mention waqsil dhakarak, that you wash your private area, then perform al-wudu. So an ijma between the ulama, as mentioned by Ibn Abdul Barr, wa Ibn Qudama, wa Ibn Munzir, that it does not require ghusl for madhi, it only requires wudu. Then as for what to be washed, then I mention أما الواجب في الماضي غسل or غسل الذكر كله. So the ulama discussed regarding concerning what of the area of the private parts to be washed. So what area around the private parts is to be washed. So on this matter, that you have a khilaf between the ulama. So what area to be washed? If the person of the discharge of madhi, what area to be washed? So on this matter, you have a khilaf between the ulama. So the first opinion, the first view of the ulama on this matter as to the area to be washed, they mention أن واجب في المذي غسل الذكر كل, that a person to wash is entire to wash is private area, the entire area. So to wash the entire area of the private area is to be washed, whether the madhi touched that area or not. So the person wash the entire area of his private parts is to be washed. That's the first. That's the view of some of the ulama, of those who take the position, Imam Malik and also Riwayah and Ahmed. So Imam Malik rahimahullah take the position of the person for that he has to wash his entire area. That would mean that his entire penis is the area to be washed. So even though whether it the madhi touched the entire area or not, the entire area to be washed. The second opinion, أن يغسل الجميع ذكر وأنثيين, that a person also that he wash also, the second opinion, he washes entire penis, private area, including also his testicles. So for a man, he washes the private and also including the testicle, so all that area to be washed. And it is mashhur min mathab and hanabila. So that the position taken by the hanabila, that a person wash his private parts and also added to this, ear to wash is testicles, both testicles. And they come to this decision based upon in some narration they mention يغسل ذكره, he washes his private part, وأنثيين أنثييه ويتوضأ, that also that he wash his private part ذكر وأنثييه, and also his two testicle ويتوضأ, and then perform al-wudu. So they mentioned that. So those two areas are to be washed based upon the narration of some narration of this hadith of Abdullah ibn Sa'd al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu, and that hadith with that extra that is found in Abu Dawood, and of those Sheikh Albani, Sheikh Muqbil, and also Sheikh Arnahout, that they all it to be authentic, the part that include regarding washing of the testicles. So that's the second opinion taken by some of the ulama. As for the hadith of Ali, it doesn't include regarding washing off the testicles. The narration of Ali doesn't include the testicle. Other narration mentioned this. Other riwayah mentioned this. The third opinion, أنه يكفي بغسل رأس الذكر. The third opinion that they mentioned that their position is that the person only wash the just that area, just there, the top of his private parts. So the top of his private parts would be the only area to be washed. So the place where the discharge came from, that would be area to be washed. So the person only, he washes the area of the discharge or the place of the exit of the discharge. That would be the only area to be washed. And that is, they mentioned that يكفي الموضع الذي أصابته النجاسة منه, or he washed the area where the madhi is. So either he washes the top where it the exit area, or the area that the najasa is on that area. And that's قول الجمهور الفقهاء من الشافعية والحنفية والرواية الأحمد. So the majority of the ulama state that only the area that needs to be washed, the top of the penis, and also where the madhi may have gone. And that's a view taken by Jumhur of the Fuqaha. So they mentioned that is a hadath min ahdath فلا يغسل منه إلا المخرج. So because of one of the ahdath or hadath min ahdath, one of those things that nullify one wudu, so the person only wash the point where it exists or exit, the point that it exit, then that's the area to be washed. As I said, with them, just as the case of al-bawl, so the person who urinate, that he will only wash just the top of his private area, not everything. Or that area that it has, the urine has fell on. Or they mention gha'it, which is the person with the defecate, akrakumullah, then also the person will only wash that's the exit area, not the entire area. So that's concerning those aqwal that I mentioned. So there's three qawl regarding what area to be washed is entire private part of those who mention the private part and is testicles, and the third opinion only the area, only the top where the discharge came from. So Sheikh Fawzan mentioned that al-qawl al-thani awfaq li-dhahir hadith, that seems more the stronger opinion, the second opinion, which is washing the private part, the entire private parts, and also in addition washing is testicle. That seems to be the more correct position. That is the more correct position based upon the narrations of the hadith that includes washing of the private and the testicles. Then I mentioned that that view also is the view that is taken that so I mentioned that all the narration that mention those two parts, the private, and some other narration mention the testicles, then if they're authentic, they are to be accepted and acted upon. So of those who incline towards that view, we have Ibn Taymiyyah, Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and also of contemporary Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Baz. So Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Baz, and prior to and before him also Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, that of the view that of the second view are in line with the second view, which is washing the entire penis and also his testicle. They mentioned the reason, the hikmah behind this, but overall they mentioned that, so overall, that's the opinion taken by those. Then I discuss الوجه التاسع حديث دليل على تعيين الماء في إزالة المذي دون استجمار بالأحجار ونحوها. That also the thing that is this, the next matter that is discussed regarding that what is to be used to cleanse of al-madhi. So the thing that is to be used is water. So the things to use to remove of madhi is water only. So not using leaves or stone or the likes. So those things are not to be used regarding cleaning of madhi, that the person only use water. So water is the only thing to be used to cleanse of al-madhi. As they mentioned that other hadith, they only mention al-ghusl. So washing without any mention or indicating using things otherwise. So that's concerning what is to be used, which is al-water, as not for this in this case. Then I discuss concerning اختلف العلماء في المذي يصيب الثوب على قولين. So the next matter they discuss regarding there's a khilaf between the ulama regarding if madhi have touched the clothing, have gone onto one's clothing, how it to be cleansed or how to be washed. They mentioned regarding concerning, and there's a khilaf on this matter. The first opinion أنه لا يجزي فيه إلا الغسل. That is, if it touches the clothing, it's to be washed out. So if it was to get onto the clothing, then it is to be washed. And that's the call of the Hanafiya, the Malikiya, and the Shafi'iyya. So al-madhi, if it gets onto the clothing or gets onto the person's garment, then the way for it to be cleansed or to be washed, it has to be to be removed. It has to be washed. That clothing has to be washed, or that area to be washed. Then I mentioned that وقول في مثل, and also some of the Hanabila also take that view. So it's the position taken by the Hanafiya, Malikiya, Shafi'iyya, and some of the Hanabila. The second, and they can use the hadith mentioned that the hadith mentioned washing of in all the hadith of the area, so that will include also washing of the garment. Second opinion أنه يجزي فيه النضح. So another, which is that sprinkling of water in the area. So not the person have to wash it out, but the person can just sprinkle water over that area. That is sufficient. So that's another opinion taken by some of the ulama, and that's the position taken by Ahmed ibn Hanbal, that it is sufficient for a person just to sprinkle water, not necessarily to wash out that area. So they mentioned that أرجو أنه يجزي النظر. We mentioned that I hope that using sprinkling of water over the area, then that's sufficient. Regarding if it gets onto the clothing, then a person can just sprinkle water, and that is sufficient. Then he mentioned that the hadith of Sal ibn Hanif رضي عنه أن رسول الله عليه السلام قال له يكفيك, that is sufficient for you بأن تأخذ كفا من الماء, it's sufficient for you to take some water in your hand فتنضح بها ثوب, so for you to sprinkle on your thawbik حيث ترى أنه أصاب منه, from where you see it has got onto your clothing. So I mentioned another. So another is mentioned regarding in this hadith, and that hadith to be discussed later, where this hadith that is mentioned by At-Tirmidhi and also Ahmed Abu Dawood, that I mentioned At-Tirmidhi قال هذا hadith حسن صحيح. So the hadith that is mentioned regarding the hadith of Salih bin Hanif, that the way the person, if he gets onto the clothing, then the person, it is sufficient for the person to sprinkle water on that area. So that's concerning that, and the hadith they mentioned here, that the hadith At-Tirmidhi rahimahullah, all the hadith to be authentic and others. So from this, they mentioned that as-sawab inshallah, that the Shaykh he mentions, that what is the correct opinion, or what he holds to be the correct opinion regarding those two views. The first view that he has to wash the area, the other with soaking with water, the other sprinkle water, meaning you don't have to wash and soak it with water. He mentioned that the second view seems to be the more valid opinion. The second view seemed to be the more valued opinion. That he mentioned that of those who align or take to the second view of sprinkling water, that he mentioned of those, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, so Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and also Tilmiduhu Ibn Qayyim, and also Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala. So that's concerning what is mentioned regarding this matter, or what is discussed regarding this hadith within. And this hadith, as we said, the mawdu of this hadith, the discussion of this hadith is relating to regarding the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib, that al-madhi, that this sexual discharge that a person may experience or may have, that it is of those that nullifies one wudu. So the person will have this discharge, then it will consider to be of those things that nullifies one wudu. And the other thing that we discussed with it regarding is hukum, that is considered to be najas, and also that if it gets onto one's clothing, then that area the person can wash, but it's sufficient, it's enough if the person chooses to, for him to just sprinkle water in that area, and that is sufficient, and the person can still pray in that garment. So that's concerning of the ahkam that can be taken from this hadith. So this inshallah ta'ala will end this session today regarding of those things that the author rahimullah mentioned, bab nawaqil al-wudu. So he mentioned the hadith of Ali that discusses concerning al-madhi, that it is classed or considered of those things that nullifies one wudu. So that inshallah ta'ala will end this session. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه السبيل والآخرة والحمد لله سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليه وبالله تعالى توفيق. Okay.
56 minutes and 28 seconds.
That's a bit long.